All righty, good evening. I see Tutuka is on live. Thank you, Tutuka. I just had my mic muted. Can you hear me now? Let me just do a sound check. Guys on TikTok, if you could please like this live, I'd really appreciate that. And if you can share in the comments what kind of, all right, sound is good on the live on Facebook and YouTube as well. In the comments, please share and like this live. I'd really appreciate that. So let me start from the beginning again. My name is Jurie Weidemann, and I'd like to say thank you to this opportunity to share from my life as in my debt-free journey. So I am sharing this live on 3 different platforms: Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at the same time. The Facebook and YouTube feed is obviously coming from a central location, and then on TikTok, I'm doing it through my TikTok account. So the idea of this live is to be able to share from my own debt-free journey as part of the Money Smart Week South Africa campaign, which is kicked off this week from the 28th of August and carries on through to the 3rd of September. In the past 5 years, I've been sharing a few different things and tidbits and bits and pieces from my debt-free journey. And this evening, I'd like to go into a little bit more detail with the aim of hopefully helping someone out there to be able to get out of debt themselves and start their own debt-free journey. So what I'd like to do is I've got a couple of slides prepared for this evening's presentation, and I'd like to ask anybody that has any questions during any part of this live feed to share some details or share some questions that you might have. I've got some questions lined up for you to answer in the chat as well, and I hope to hear and collaborate with you as much as I can along this. I see in TikTok, Hilgard, I see your request, but I'm going to decline it. I've got a presentation lined up, and I'd like to share this app going forward. So if you have any questions, please do that. Share that in the comments so that we can address that in due time. Like I said at the beginning of this live feed, I am sharing this on YouTube as well as Facebook. So if you prefer going to either of those platforms, you can go search for Weide-Market. That's WeideMarket, and you'll be able to find Weide-Market on either YouTube or Facebook to follow this live feed through there. And you can participate in the chats on there or on TikTok via the comments. So I appreciate that. So what I'd like to do now is to share my presentation, and for the people on TikTok, so let me share my presentation, and that's on screen now. So the topic of this live feed this evening is 10 steps to get debt-free or live a debt-free life. And my debt-free journey basically started towards the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019, and I will be sharing some of the details from that. Can I just quickly get an indication on, thank you, Vusi, for the likes on TikTok. Just let me know in the comments if you guys can actually hear me, just to confirm that, please, on TikTok. If you can just leave a comment to let me know if you are able to hear me on TikTok. Thank you, Gian, for joining the live. Thanks, Vusi, for confirming that. I appreciate that. Guys, please remember to like this live feed on TikTok and YouTube or Facebook as well. So, 10 steps to a debt-free life. Let me start off by just introducing myself and introducing the topics this evening. We'll be going through each of the steps, and we need to realize that debt is modern day slavery. Debt creates more slaves today, I believe, than what it did in the past. But before I go into all those kind of details, let me just introduce myself. Who am I? What do I stand for? Why am I talking about this evening? So my name is Jurie Weidemann. I started my debt-free journey about uh, towards the end of 2018, about 5 years ago. And at that time, I was starting to get divorced. That's unfortunate, but yeah, I did learn a lot of good lessons through that. So the lessons I will be learning this evening, I must make a disclaimer that it is definitely not financial advice. It is about what I did with my money. And hopefully, by sharing my journey, I am able to inspire or share some tips with other people in in the world, really, to also get out of debt and share their own debt-free journeys with the world as well. So on screen on YouTube and Facebook, you'll see a couple of photos of me, some of it being social photos, some of it being family photos, and some of it being where I am involved in workshops in teaching entrepreneurs about the basics of money. So I'd like to start off by asking the first question of this evening, and that is, if you could share in the chat your answer to this question. Have you ever felt burdened by debt? Have you ever felt burdened by debt? Yes or no? Let me know. Is debt something that you've ever struggled with? Is there something you've been enjoying about having debt? Is it nice for you to be able to have debt in your life? Let me know in the comments. Tutuka on Facebook, let me know what you think. Have you been burdened by debt? I know you share some debt out of debt, getting out of debt tips and tricks as well on your own channels and your own social profiles. So I'd like to hear from you on that. Olivia Abel on TikTok. Kuzwayo Tabiso, good evening. Nicola, good evening. It's great to have you guys here. So Tutuka on Facebook, we are an authorized financial service provider, and many of our customers tell us that it keeps them up at night. Yep, definitely. And this is something I struggled with as well in the past. I used to be kept up by the struggles I had with debt for sure. And yeah, so this is the reason why I want to share some of the tips and lessons I learned. Um, Going forward during this presentation, I will also share some texts from the Bible. And believe it or not, the Bible is something that teaches us about how to handle money, how to manage our finances. So I might be sharing from the Bible, but that doesn't mean I'm going to try and convert you into Christianity. That's not the case at all. I'm merely sharing from what I've learned in my own life. And I found it very interesting in my own debt-free journey in the last 5 years that there are so many things that we can learn from the Bible about how we manage our finances. So once again, I will be sharing some texts from the Bible, but I'm not trying to convert you or convince you about the correctness of the Bible or anything like that. I'm merely sharing from what I've learned in my own life. So don't try and make this a religious thing. It's not about that at all. I really just want to share from the Bible and from other books what that I've learned. Some of the books I've read a lot and learned a lot of is this book, The Richest Man in Babylon. The Richest Man in Babylon is an old book. It was released in the 1940, 1948, somewhere in that lines. And it basically goes into the basics of how to manage your finances. So that's one book. And I'm not only referring to Bible verses this evening, but this is a book I would recommend anybody read. And I still go through it on a regular basis, making notes and making sure that I still stick to the basics, because I believe sticking to the basics is how we win. We can't do the advanced things if we can't master the basics. So I'm going to speed up a little bit. As you can see on screen on Facebook and YouTube, I have various aspects of my life. I am a family man. I have got a daughter, and I have quite a large family and I love children. And I truly believe that the things we leave behind, the legacy we build during this short life we have here on earth, is necessary for us to leave a legacy. And you'll see later during this presentation or this live feed, I also go into the legacy we leave behind, and that we should stop thinking short term, because this is the reason we get into debt to begin with. Right. Thanks for all the likes on TikTok as well. I really appreciate that. So Anton Lund on TikTok says, I don't know how I have a debt problem. It is that the cost of living is becoming increasingly difficult. Sure, that is for sure a thing. And we need to obviously increase our income as we learn, earn, invest, and repeat. And I'll get into more detail about that a little bit later. By the way, later this week, I am also doing a live on Wednesday evening, specifically about starting a side hustle and how we can utilize our free time to build the life we want instead of trying to escape the life we have. But we need to be content with the life we have been given and the life we've built up to this point. Remember, about 5 years ago, you probably wished to be where you are right now. So let's not discount that either. Right, let's get into the details of where I come from. So at the end of 2018, like I said, I realized that I was in too much debt. I tried to figure it out. I tried to rent out property. I tried to do different things to create extra income. But I soon had to realize that making more money was not the problem. Making more money doesn't solve the problem. Making more money is not the solution. The solution is to change our habits. And this is where I want to start this evening. Before I go into that, I'd like to share this concept about competence. On screen on Facebook and YouTube, I'm sharing a little diagram of a circle. Now, if you imagine a circle, for the guys on TikTok that can't see the presentation, if you imagine a circle being all the knowledge in the world, and you take a small segment of that circle, which represents what you know, the things you know you are good at. In other words, your competent, your circle of competence or your circle of influence. That is a slither of the complete knowledge of the world. Then let's take an equal size slither of that circle, and we call that the things we don't know, the things we know we don't know. So, for example, I've got an engineering background, and I know I cannot do surgery on someone. I know that I can't yet fly an aeroplane because I haven't had any training in it. But I am aware that I don't know these things. So when we talk about competence, we talk about the things we know, the things we don't know, and the things we don't even know that we don't know. So when we talk about competence, there are basically 4 levels of competence. The first level is that we are unconsciously unskilled. So these are things we don't know that we don't know. Then, once we get made aware of these things, we become consciously unskilled. So now we are aware of the things that we don't know. We are aware that there are things that we are not well or not good at. Then we go a level up as we start practicing or researching the things we know we don't know. Then we become consciously skilled. In other words, we've started practicing these things and we've learned about how to change our habits or how do we improve our finances. So then we consciously need to think about these things we need to do to improve whatever situation or knowledge or skill that we have. Once we've mastered that skill, in other words, mastered the basics, then we can make the step up towards creating or operating unconsciously. That means we're unconsciously skilled. So we've learned a new skill, we've mastered that new skill, and now we're able to do that thing unconsciously. This is how our brains work. We create habits for ourselves to be able to operate more effectively and conserve energy for the things that require our concentration. Right. Let me just take a sip of water. Please excuse me for a second. Wusi on TikTok, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. Macy Pop, everybody on TikTok, I appreciate it. If you could like this live, I'd really like that a lot. So we've covered competence and we've covered the way we learn, right? So let's get into the meat of it. And I want to try and finish before 8 o'clock because I've got load shedding at 8 o'clock. So although I will still have internet, you might not be able to see me so well because I'll be in darkness. So when we talk about realizing that debt is slavery, this is something that I got myself into. And this brings me to this book, Extreme Ownership, How Navy SEALs Win. So Navy SEALs lead and win, Extreme Ownership. This is a book I read towards the end of 2018 when I started realizing things are going awry. Things are not going the way I had it planned. Things are not going the way I wanted it to be. And I believe, and I know now, that we are born to be free. We are not born to be slaves. We are born to get to live good, free lives. And we've been given free choice from the day we were born. We don't live in a world where we need to be controlled at every corner of our lives. We want to be able to have free choice. That's the way we were created. We were given free choice by our creator. And that's what I believe as a Christian. So our freedom was paid for by the death of Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior, and the Son of the Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity, God, Jesus, died on the cross for us to be free. And that's where my reference starts. So at the end of 2018, like I said, Amir, thanks for requesting to be on the live, but I'm going to decline it for now. Maybe we can do this later. My debt racked up to such a point where I was in the red every month by 5 to 8,000 Rand a month. And I had to make changes. I had to take extreme ownership, and I had to start learning about money. And this is where we need to start our debt-free journeys. We need to realize that we are born to be free. Our freedom has been paid for, and we need to live and step into that freedom. In Proverbs 22, verse 7, we are told that we are slaves to those we owe money to. We are slaves to those we owe anything to. If we owe someone something, we are that person or that organization's slave. So debt is something that is not new. It's not a new concept. It's not something that was created by the banks or were created by democracy or by capitalism or whatever. Debt is something that has been around for years and years and years. But we never learned how to handle debt because debt enslaves us. So like I said earlier, making more money is not the solution. Money is the reason we're in debt to begin with. So let me ask you another question. At this point, do you believe that managing debt is crucial for financial freedom? Do you believe that financial freedom, or rather managing debt, is required to be able to achieve financial freedom? Let me know in the comments. Tutuka on Facebook says, absolutely. Thanks, Tutuka. I appreciate that. Anton Lund on TikTok, yes, it is a requirement for sure to be able to say that we have financial freedom. Let me move on to the next question. Have you experienced stress due to financial obligations? Have you experienced stress due to financial obligations? Vusi says yes on TikTok. So definitely we all, Anton also on TikTok says yes. Right, let me ask one more question before we go on to, do you think debt can limit your ability to pursue your passions? Tutuka on Facebook says it is important for people to understand the different kinds of debt, good versus bad. Yeah, that's a debate for another day. I'm not big on debt, and the reason for that is because of the fact that I believe that debt is slavery. There are different kinds of assets, and there are different means of creating those assets. But making debt puts us under pressure. Making debt causes stress in our lives. Hello, Magdalena on TikTok. um, I'll be sure not to say anything about my ex-wife. I'm just kidding. I'm making a joke. My ex-wife is on the live feed as well. I feel honored. Thank you for joining. So, like I was saying, debt, yes. Vusi says on TikTok, no debts means more liberty for sure. So the less debt we have, the more free we can be. So is becoming debt free a goal you strive for? It is something, is it something that you strive for? Because it is certainly something I strive for. Is getting debt free something you strive for? I am definitely striving to become debt free. And like I said, more money is not the solution. The problem is that our habits are causing us to get into debt. Our spending habits is the problem, not the amount of income we make. Yes, we need to maximize our income. Yes, we need to create more income. But if we if we don't address our spending habits, then more money is not going to solve the problem for us. The more money we make, the more lifestyle creep we have, the more we spend money, and the more we are in trouble and don't create extra cash flow in our lives. Tutuka on Facebook says, home loan is a good debt and can actually be useful. Personal loan or credit cards are definitely limiting. Tutuka, there is more behind your statement than just following that blindly. I believe that, yes, you can build assets with debt, but the return on investment needs to be more than the interest you pay on that debt. And the mathematics need to make sense before you enter into that debt. Anton Lund says, yes, we all would love to be debt free. But first, we need to stop spending money. We need to be more disciplined with our money. So we must focus on changing our habits. We have to focus on changing our spending habits. And this brings me to the next slide. If we can focus on changing our spending habits, we need to have a big enough motivation. So we need to set a destination of where we want to get to. We need to decide where do we want to go? Where is it that we want to end up at? And we definitely need to make sure that the debt we make or the debt we have supports our calling, supports getting to the destination we want to get to. So for sure, we can use debt, but we need to be so cognitive and so aware of what debt we make, how we make that debt, and what return we get from that. So Tutuka on Facebook says, yes, the more money, the less investments. We have seen that with many of our customers. Right. So how do we do this? The positives of being debt free. So I'm not debt free yet. But if I look back to where I was back in 2018, I had too big of a house with too big of a debt. I was paying groceries. I was buying groceries with my credit card. My credit card debt was too much. My personal loan debt was too much. I had too large of cell phone contracts. I was still paying off a lot of other things, and I had to make sacrifices. I had to decide, where do I want to end up? What do I want to go to? What destination one do I want to end up at? And I had to change my spending habits. So the problem with debt is that there's interest connected to that debt. And depending on which type of debt you had, whether it be a personal loan, which can be up to 25% or even more interest, credit card debt can be up to 25 or more interest, vehicle finance, home loans, all of these things carry interest with it. The problem with that is that you're spending future income. In other words, what do I mean? So, interest is something you pay to make the bank consider you a financially wise investment. So, debt is an investment in you from the bank side, giving you money that you don't have to pay interest with your future income that you haven't even made yet. So, this is the problem with debt. And that's the reason debt enslaves us. We need to escape debt's grip on our lives. Let's move on to the next slide. Step number 3 of getting out of debt is that we need to be brutally honest with ourselves. The way to get out of debt is to be honest. In other words, we need to look at ourselves and realize we are carrying a weight that we weren't supposed to carry, so that we can see what that weight is, see what the debt is, and then let go of that debt or start creating a plan to get out of debt. Like I said earlier, we need to take ownership of our decisions. We need to take ownership of the current situation we are in if we wish to make a difference. So, you may have heard it said that with great responsibility comes great power. Rather, with great power becomes great responsibility. I want to change that around. So the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. First time I heard it was in Spider-Man, but I'm sure it comes from somewhere else. I want to flip it around, and this is from the book Extreme Ownership, where they say that if you take extreme responsibility, then you create extreme power for yourself to make difference. If you take responsibility for where you are and what you've done with your finances up to this point, then you enable yourself to make a difference in your finances, make a difference in your financial habits. You can look at the baggage that you're carrying around and let go of that baggage. So take ownership. Taking ownership creates power for us to change what we've done in the past and create a better future for us and for our children and for our children's children. So we want to build a legacy, and that's the thing I want to get to. We don't want to sit in a situation where we leave a legacy of debt to our children. We want to leave a good legacy for our children. So Quas du Bruche on TikTok. Please excuse me, but I'm going to decline your request to join the live conversation. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments. Tutuka, you as well on Facebook, and anybody else on YouTube as well. If you have any other questions or comments, please share them in the chat or in the comments on TikTok. Right. So we need to be honest with ourselves if we want to make changes in our lives. We are responsible for the choices that brought us to this place. We are responsible for the debt that we've made. We signed contracts for those things. We signed surety. We signed to buy a house on debt. We signed to buy a house, buy a car on debt. Now, on that point, we get different kinds of assets when we talk finances. You get productive assets. Productive assets is something that creates value in your life and increases your income potential. So if you live in Pretoria, like I do, and you get a job in Kempton Park or in Joburg, then you're going to need transport to get to that location. But you don't need a Porsche to drive to the office and back. You can do that on the N1 quite safely with a Hyundai i10 or Suzuki Swift or something like that. You don't need to buy the most expensive car you can afford according to your income. You need to take your income and only spend a certain amount of your income on so that you follow a budget. And we'll get to a budget a little bit later. We also need to realize that we need to be stewards of the money that we've been given. We were given talents and skills that we've developed over time, but we don't have that just to make ourselves rich. We have those skills and talents to make the world around us a better place. And that doesn't come from just making a lot of money. And on my YouTube and Facebook channels, as well as on TikTok, I share the concept of genuine wealth, but I'll share more about that in Wednesday's webinar and live feed if you want to join that as well. So, if we want to get out of debt, we need to firstly audit our finances. Where are we at? We cannot determine where we want to go if we don't even know, or rather, we've decided the destination we want to get to, right? But we can't plot a path towards that destination if we don't know where we are right now. Excuse me. So we need to audit our current situation. What are we currently, what are we currently spending money on? What are our current spending habits? And how are we triggered for those habits? So on YouTube and Facebook, you'll see my first point here is that we need to simplify our lifestyle, and we start by identifying the instant gratification habits we have, and we need to identify the cues or the triggers that causes us to spend money when we weren't planning on spending it. So we need to determine what our habits are. And how do we do that? We need to audit our finances. So before we get to the point of creating a budget or following a plan or even creating a plan, we need to understand where we are right now. We need to take audit of our spending habits, and we do that by keeping track of every cent or every rand at least that we spend. Where do we spend it? How do we categorize it? Is it a necessity? Is it a want? Or does it get us closer to our end goal? So we need to adjust our lifestyle, or we stay in the chains of debt. We need to be sure of where we are so that we can plot a path or a plan towards the destination we want to get to. So if we want to get debt free, we need to understand what our debts are and how we're spending money on it. These are 7 things that we need to do to simplify our lives. Number 1, we need to learn to say no. We need to know when we are triggered so that we can resist that temptation of spending money on something we weren't planning on. Number 2, we need to stop buying on credit. Cut up your credit card. Stop buying on credit. That is the only way to close your credit card account. Your credit card is a liability, because if you can't trust yourself with your clothing accounts, your credit card, all of these kind of things, cut it up and close those accounts. If there is still debt on those accounts, pay off the debt. Change the triggers so that you can change your habits. So I recently read Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I suggest anybody goes to read it as well. It is such an important thing to understand the environment you are triggered in to spend money on. Right. So if you know that if you go as a man, go into Builders Warehouse and you will spend money on screwdrivers or sanding paper or whatever the case may be you find in builders warehouse, or if you walk around in Woolies and you see something beautiful and you buy that on the fly, then you're causing things, you're spending money that you should have been spending on other things like paying off your debt. The fourth thing, we need to get into the habit of spending more than what we earn, right? So I think it was Anton on TikTok earlier that said that the problem is that everything is getting more expensive. Yes, for sure, that is a problem, and we need to learn and develop our skills so that we can create extra income, so that we can add more value, and by adding more value, we increase our income potential. But we need to spend less than we earn. We need to have a buffer between what we earn and what we spend so that we have positive cash flow. And by the way, let me ask you to share in the comments, what is your definition of financial freedom? Financial freedom, what do you believe is financial freedom? What is financial freedom and what does it look like? Or in one sentence, what is your definition of financial freedom? Let me know. What is your definition of financial freedom? Kiki on TikTok, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. So, to answer the question, what is your definition of financial freedom? For me, financial freedom means that you have control over at least a portion of your income. So there are necessities, um, transport, food, shelter, or accommodation, investing in yourself, improving your skills. These are the necessities. So Tutuka on Facebook, spending less than what I earn and having investments to fall back on. That is pretty much bang on what my definition of financial freedom is as well. So that you have cash flow available for which you are free to choose what you spend that cash flow on. For me, that is the definition of financial freedom. Financial independence is a different story. Being a millionaire is a different story. You don't need to be a millionaire to be able to be financially free. I believe you can be financially free as an income earner, as an employee, you can be financially free. Vusi says being able to build up wealth for the next generation. Yes, that is for sure. Hi, Ethan. Haven't seen you in a while. How you doing? So Anton Lund on TikTok says, I first invest and then I spend what is left. That is fantastic. And I so hope and wish that more people will start doing that. Because if we can spend less than we earn and invest, then we are starting to make our money work for us instead of us continuously working for our money. And this is where the magic happens. This is what I believe how we build financial freedom is that we are in control of the money. So money is a fantastic servant, but it is a terrible master. And if you owe money, like we saw earlier, you are a slave to money. Right. So the next thing we can do is to be patient. We are so bombarded with opportunities for instant gratification that we tend to spend money on whatever marketing says. And that's the next point. Be more aware of the marketing tricks because marketing is a fine art on how do they get customers to spend more money. How do they get more customers to spend more money with them? And they nail it by doing uh, they play on your emotions. They get into behind your emotions to get you to think that you need this thing that they are selling. Marketing's job is to create the need for you to spend money. And we need to be more aware of the tricks and messages that marketing put out there. Marketing tells us we need the latest phone. Marketing tells us we need the latest car. We need a new car. We need to have a car that is brand new because of A, B, C, and D. But in fact, I'm currently driving a 12-year-old car. It's got 350,000 kilometers on the clock, but it runs on the money. The moment I turn the key, it runs. It has never dropped me, but I made sure that when I bought the car, I knew that it would be a reliable car so that I don't have to spend money on the car. I sold my house, and this is some of the extreme cases, extreme things, extreme steps we need to take to create cash flow in our lives. I voluntarily put myself under debt review, and I had to do that to create surplus cash flow in my life from the income I had because I was drowning in debt. I don't recommend anybody going under debt review voluntarily, but that is the steps I took to create surplus cash flow for myself. Once I had surplus cash flow, I was able to make more clearer decisions because now I wasn't under the constant pressure of debt and having to survive on credit. I was able to do those things. And obviously, my situation is different to anybody else on this live feed. So everybody must take audit of their own lives and make the necessary decisions we need to make. It is easier if we have a partner to be able to do it with us. And the partner obviously needs to buy into what we are trying to achieve. And we need to be sure that we all reach or aim for the same destination and agree on the plan on how to reach that destination. None of these things, by the way, are fixed in stone, but we need to decide what is the legacy we want to leave behind. Am I building as a legacy of debt, or am I building a legacy of leaving a wise inheritance for my next generations to come? And if we leave a good inheritance, we can leave a good legacy behind so that our children can make a bigger difference and a bigger, larger, positive impact in the world than we were able to make. Because everybody starts at zero, by the way. So nobody, when they get born into the life, has 1,000 followers, for example, or has a YouTube channel with 1 million people. All of those people start from zero. Every business that starts from zero. We need to be aware of where we start, where we want to get to, and how do we get to that. Right. So what can we start doing today to make a difference in our debt? Number one is we need to stop comparing ourselves to others. Keeping up to other people is what keeps us in debt. We need to assess our own situation and take responsibility of our own situation. We need to invest in ourselves by reading books like The Wealth Chef by Ann Wilson. Ann Wilson, by the way, is an African author that also has a civil engineering background. So I really enjoyed her story because I've got an engineering background. My engineering background is electronics, though, and my career has progressed into business development now. But I really enjoyed the way Ann Wilson, the Wealth Chef, laid out the way we can handle money. So you can go into Rich Dad Poor Dad and all those kind of books, uh, Richest Man in Babylon, but Ann Wilson puts it in a way that is simple and entertaining and doesn't go into high level investment language like Robert Kiyosaki or these kind of people would go into. Stop comparing ourselves to other people. In the Bible, Romans 12, verse 2, it says, we should not conform to this world, but we must be transformed by the renewing of our minds. And the way we renew our minds is that we understand our identity, our self-belief of what we are capable to achieve, what we were born to achieve. That is what our identity is. And our identity is not what the world says of us, but our identity is defined by our creator. Our identity, what we believe of ourselves, is defined by the person who made us, the person who designed us, the entity, the deity, whatever it is that you believe in. I believe in God Almighty because I'm a Christian, but whatever you believe in, wherever you believe you come from, your identity needs to be rooted in an absolute truth. Otherwise, we fall for every little trick that the enemy has. The enemy can be defined in many different ways. For me, the enemy is the devil, and the devil is Satan, is a snake with very clever tricks and very clever ideas up his sleeve. So we need to be aware of that. 2 Corinthians 10, verse 12 says, we should, if we compare ourselves to others, we are being unwise. In what areas of your life are you trying to keep up with the society? Think about that for a minute. If you want, share in the comments. What are the areas in your life that you are trying to keep up with society that is causing you to make unwise decisions? Mr. Rion, thanks for joining the live, but I'm just sharing one way to this evening. I will do a more interactive session the other night. So, moving on to the next slide. Think about in what areas of your life are you trying to keep up with society, which is causing you to make unwise decisions. Step number 6 of living a debt-free life is to be content with what you have been given. Contentment is the greatest gain. If we read 1 Timothy 6, verse 6, Timothy says that being content is the greatest gain or the greatest investment or the greatest thing you can decide for yourself. If you can decide at a point to be content with what you have, that is the greatest gain. Now, I'm not saying that we should just accept and live our lives and not make something of ourselves. We were given skills and talents to do as much as we possibly can with those things. And we read this in the Bible as well. We need to use our talents and our skills to maximize our impact and our positive impact in the world. Tristan says, yesterday, and it didn't really make sense since when you said that day will what I have no to do. Tristan, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. Maybe just rephrase your comment there, please. It is a lie of the enemy that more possessions will bring greater satisfaction and security in our lives. We need to understand that possessions does not create happiness. Happiness does not come from, in fact, I want to quote Jordan Peterson. For those of you who don't know who Jordan Peterson is, he wrote the book 12 Rules for Life. In this book, he says that happiness is not a good pursuit and not a good purpose for our lives, but rather that finding a good balance between chaos and stability, or between the unknown and the known, that is the golden thread to find contentment in life. I believe that I am happy because, Tristan, thanks for your question, but that's not the topic of this evening. Thank you. We are talking about debt and getting out of debt and having a debt-free journey and making difference in our finances. So, true happiness and satisfaction, I believe, comes from being content with what we have, being content with our health, being content with our relationships, being content with our finances, and being content with the 24 hours a day that we have. Live for today. Live for where you are right now. Live in the moment. Yes, we want to get to a destination. Yes, we want to have a positive impact in the world, but we should be present in today. That is why it is called the present, because it is a gift. Every day is a gift for us to be able to live the maximum impact that we can and make a positive change and make a positive impact in the world around us. So be content with what we have and use that as our starting point to move forward, to learn, earn, and invest and repeat. So I alluded to financial freedom earlier. If we are financially free and we have positive cash flow, we are free to decide to what to do with that money every month. But if we start creating positive cash flow, we need to decide beforehand what we are going to do with that extra positive cash flow. This brings me to the next point, and that is that we have to create a budget. So drawing up a budget is a vital part of creating financial well-being in our lives. Now, many times, and I was in this place before as well, that I saw a budget as a burden. I saw a budget as something that restricts me. But the nature of money is like the nature of water. It will flow. Money flows, whether you tell it to go where to go or not. If you've poured out a glass of water on the floor, the water will flow in all directions. But if you have a funnel of where you want to channel that water towards, then you have control over that money. And this is where a budget comes from. I said earlier that we need to audit our finances. I'm going to lose light just now, so I hope you'll stay with me throughout the live. I was aiming to finish by 8 o'clock, but there are a few important things that I still want to address. Tutuka, I hope you'll stay with me after 8 as well. And everybody on the live at TikTok, please stick around. There are a few more things that I want to add here. So, auditing our finances, determining the things we spend money on, gives us. Okay, Vusi, I'll get to your question just now on the next slide. I used in my finances, I used the snowball method of paying off my debts, and I'll get to that in a moment. So, auditing our financial habits puts us in a place where we understand our current situation. A budget is the plan that we put into place to get to from where we are right now to where we want to be. Now, there's no such thing as a perfect budget. There's no such thing as following that budget perfectly. It is a fluid thing, and especially the first time you create a budget, you need to understand that you will not be able to follow your budget perfectly from day one. You are going to make mistakes. We are going to stumble and fall. We still need to learn the new habits and cultivate the new habits so that we can create and follow the plan that we've set out for ourselves to get to where we want to be. If you travel on holidays, you know where you are, you know where you want to get to, but you might hit a pothole on the way and get a flat tire, or you might run out of fuel because you had to take a detour because of a flood or a bridge that was damaged so badly that you couldn't follow the route you planned to. So we need to have a plan, but that plan needs to adjust as time goes on and as we learn more about our financial habits and our financial skills. A budget is something that creates a better plan so that we can have more money. More money, I mean more available cash flow. We don't, at this point, remember, we haven't even spoken about making more money. We are just talking about creating financial habits that create positive cash flow, and that positive cash flow must be snowballed back into our debt. In Luke 14, verse 28, the Bible says we must calculate the cost. The budget is a way of calculating the cost and creating a plan for getting from where we are right now to where we want to be. So, Vusi, you asked, if I have a lot of debt, which is better to pay, starting with high interest debt or the expensive ones? Start with the smallest one first. That is the snowball method. The snowball method says that you start by paying off the smallest debt with every little bit of available cash flow you have. And I'll get to starting an emergency fund just now. Once you've audited where you are, then you need to sell everything that is unnecessary in your life so that you can create extra cash in your life and attack the smallest debt you have. Pay the minimum on everything and attack the smallest one. Once you've paid off the smallest one, you need a big win. You need a small win. This is what I'm trying to say. You've declared war on your debt. So attack the smallest debt first and pay every little rand you have into that debt and get that debt paid off as soon as you possibly can. Then the snowball effect works like this. Once you've won that small battle, you will be hooked and convinced that paying off the debt is the way to go. So you've declared war, you need a small win, pay off the small debt first as quickly as possible. Then that minimum premium you were paying on that debt, you pour onto the next biggest debt, the second biggest debt on your debt list, and attack that one. Get rid of the second largest debt and use whatever squeeze you can on your finances to pay into that small, the second largest debt you have, or the second smallest debt, the second one up from that, and snowball your debt in such a way. But I just lost power. So I still have internet and I should still be able to do this. Let me just make an adjustment here. Right. So the next big, oh, where was I? Sorry. Let me just gather myself here. Right. So as I was saying, is that an emergency fund is after you've audited yourself, after you've created an audit of what you're currently spending money on, then you need to create an emergency fund. Why do you need emergency fund? Emergency fund keeps Murphy at bay. Do you know who Murphy is? Murphy is that guy that comes knocking when you're in trouble. Murphy is that guy, the moment things starts to look up, the moment things starts looking better, that's the moment Murphy comes to knock on your door and break the washing machine, or your car needs a service, or the geyser bursts and you need to pay a what's the word? An excess on your insurance. Having an emergency fund gives you peace of mind so that when these emergencies do come up, and by the way, we have to only determine the real emergencies. If it is life-threatening or if it is causing larger problems in our lives, those are emergencies that our emergency funds are for. But the moment Murphy comes to knock at your door and you have an emergency fund available, you just take some of that and pay your Murphy tax. And Murphy will just keep on moving along. And by the way, I've experienced this in my own life that if I have an emergency fund in place, Murphy comes knocking less because he knows I have paid my Murphy tax and I have the money available to pay for the emergencies that come up. This enables you even further to stop living on credit card and personal loans because when the emergencies do come up, you have the cash available in your emergency fund to pay for those things. So we have to start an emergency fund. Right. So an emergency fund enables us to be wise with our money. An emergency fund brings stability and peace of mind, and it enables us to regain control over our money. Are you prepared for the unexpected? The way to do that is by having an emergency fund. So this is what I was talking about, Vusi. Snowball your debt. Make arrangements with your creditors. Many times you can go back to your creditors and negotiate with them to tell them that, listen, this is my situation. I'm not able to service all this debt. I'm going to start falling behind if you don't come to the party and help me to pay this debt. Most of the times, your creditors will renegotiate and give you a better rate or give you an extended payment plan or something like that. But it will be help you reduce the immediate premiums that you have. Cut expenses, sell unnecessary items, do whatever it is to create surplus cash flow so that you can have cash flow available to stop living on credit. Pay the smaller debts off first and seek wise financial guidance. Once again, guys, none of the information I'm sharing here this evening is financial advice. I am sharing what I did in my life to start taking extreme measures because I was in an extreme situation back in 2018. I still have debt today, but I am financially free according to my definition because I believe I was able to create surplus cash flow and I am free now every month to decide what I do with that cash flow. So, 4 habits that we need to cultivate. We need to obviously earn income and we need to maximize the income that we have by improving our skills. How do we improve our skills? We invest, we learn how to create income, then we start earning income, then we invest in our skills and our knowledge about money and about our market and career so that we can repeat the process and learn more, earn more, invest more, and repeat that process again. Learn, earn, invest, repeat. We need to constantly repeat this process if we want to take control of our money and create income by putting our money to work. If you put your money to work, your money will work tirelessly for you. And this is one of the principles we find in The Richest Man in Babylon. This is something that opened my eyes so much so that, thank you, Anton. I appreciate your comment. I've also got load shedding now, which is why I'm running on a torch at the moment. Fortunately, my internet has got a backup power. So, whatever financial decisions you make, counsel with wise financial advisors. How do you identify a wise financial advisor? You identify someone with a teacher's heart, someone who wants to help you instead of just creating a sales pipeline for themselves. Right. I'm coming close to my last slide of the evening. Tutuka, if you could scan this, or let me share in the comments a link so that you can give feedback. If I'll appreciate that a lot. Hope you'll be able to click on that and give us some feedback about what you've received from this evening. In the comments on TikTok, please let me know what you've enjoyed on this live. I'd like to improve this presentation in the future as well. So if you could share that, I'd really appreciate that. On YouTube and Facebook, I am sharing a QR code if you wish to scan that and give me feedback through that. I'd really like to get feedback from you so that I can improve this presentation or improve this webinar in the future. Unfortunately, since I'm on load shedding, I'm going to have to end this live now. If you have any questions, you can find my link in my bio on TikTok or on Facebook and YouTube. You can find my link to more information or to get in touch with me via the link in my Facebook page or on my YouTube channel as well. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining this live. Thank you for comments and participating in this. Tutuka, for you as well. Share, also send me the details from what you're going to share later this week. And then I'd love to join your live webinar as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining this. Vusi, I love how you presented the snowball method. Also, the intro on learning what we don't know. Thank you, Vusi. I appreciate it. Yes, remember, emergency funds are vital to be able to improve our finances. And once again, like I said, we are learning as we go. Be patient with ourselves to learn the new skills because we haven't made these habits. We haven't had these habits. So we will make mistakes. Do not lose hope because we need to learn these new habits and create new financial habits in our lives to create the finances we want in our lives. Anyways, I'm going to end this live now. Thank you very much. You must have a great evening. Have a great week. Have a great September. September's coming up. Can you believe it? Thank you, Tutuka. I'll go have a look at your Facebook and TikTok pages as well. So Tutuka has a live feed on 30 or an event taking place on 18:30 on Wednesday. So you're more than welcome to check that out as well. Have a great evening. Be blessed. Take care. I'll catch you on the flip side. Cheers.